Were the Americans under attack at the consulate in Benghazi, Libya, denied requests for help during that attack? And is it fair to tell Americans that what happened is under investigation and we'll all find out after the election?
Well, the election has nothing to do with four brave Americans getting killed and us wanting to find out exactly what happened.
Were they denied requests for help during the attack?
The minute I found out what was going on, I gave three very clear directives. Number one, make sure that we are securing our personnel and doing whatever we need to.
All right, that was President Obama yesterday. He twice failed to answer a local reporter's question on Benghazi. What does this say about the administration's leadership and position? And what happened to transparency? So here to debate all of this is radio talk show host Tony Katz, Democratic strategist Brian Benjamin, and former Lieutenant Governor of New York and author of Decoding the Obama Healthcare Law, What You Need to Know, Betsy McCoy. Welcome to all of you.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Okay, so that was an interview with a local Denver reporter. The Denver reporter twice tried to ask the president, were requests for added security denied in Benghazi? That's what Fox News has uncovered recently this week. The president, in fairness, said we're trying to find out exactly what happened. So is this, Betsy, the president, trying sort of dodging the question, or is he trying to give a more measured response and not give a misleading response as they did the first time around?
Unfortunately, it appears that he's dodging the question because there's already a mountain of evidence. The film from the drone, the emails that came in starting at 4:05, 7 hours they watched as Americans died and did nothing. Of course, this is relevant to who should be commander-in-chief. And not only this time around, but this failure disqualifies Hillary Clinton from being a future commander-in-chief. As she said, the buck also stopped with her. And clearly, she is not qualified to be president of the United States if she watched these people die.
Brian, why haven't we been able to get more straightforward answers from the administration?
Well, I believe we're waiting. You said it right. It's a measured response. They are doing an investigation. The Republican House is doing an investigation. So let's be fair and give it time. I understand it doesn't fall within the political timetables that we want it to. But let's be clear about presidential leadership when it comes to Mitt Romney. Number one, where does he stand on pulling his endorsement on Richard Murdoch? God did not intend rape, and God did not intend for women to have children of rape.
Four men
First of all, but let me finish.
are dead in Benghazi, and I'm talking about a
Second point, he also needs to talk about John Sununu and some of the racist remarks that he has made in regards to General Colin Powell, who's an American hero. So all I'm saying is that's presidential leadership when you talk about the point.
No. Leadership is the recognition that we're not about political party. We're about right versus wrong, and we're about getting answers. 4 men dead in Benghazi, and part of the conversation of why we're not getting straight answers is because this administration doesn't know how to use the word terrorism. When Nidal Hasan murdered 13 soldiers at Fort Hood, it was called a workplace incident. They take terrorism and they call it a man-made disaster, or whatever nonsense nomenclature they want to call it. They're not honest with the English language. How do you expect them to have an honest conversation with America? And all you're talking about, John Sununu and everything else,
that's not all I'm talking about. I'm saying the conversation is presidential leadership.
Man
so
up
let's
to
talk
that.
about presidential leadership.
And Tony's making a very important point here that obviously the president and Hillary Clinton concocted a story about a video in order to cover up the fact that a terrorist incident had occurred.
Since then, they have used the term terrorism, and now that does seem to be what
there was no
reason
to ever use that.
First of all,
the video cover.
There was no reason to tell
the president.
The parents of these dead
because there's two ones. Quick point.
Yeah.
The president has been very strong on terrorism, which is why this is all that we're talking about. The president took on Osama bin Laden, has been taking out his key leadership, and listen, this was a tragic incident, but we have to let the process play itself out.
This is an important bump on the road.
We try to get answers before the election. Wouldn't it help to know?
Of course we should.
But folks are doing that. The Republican House is all over this. You act like we're sitting out here not doing anything. We are making moves to get the information.
And again, it's about not seeing it properly. You keep talking about the Republican House. We're talking about why were 4 soldiers, why were 3 soldiers, why was the ambassador left to die? Why were they allowed to be murdered? Why in the world was the White House and others watching what happened? That's the conversation.
Let's get
and to bring political party into it is
well, you have to, because the
conversation
is presidential leadership. So
no,
let's
that's
talk
about leadership.
Leadership
It doesn't have to be about party. It doesn't have to be about party. It's about leadership.
Go ahead.
And what would leadership look like now?
Well, leadership certainly would look like ensuring that that embassy was sufficiently protected before the
clearly-
incident
right,
occurred.
sure, of course.
Secondly,
Now
leadership would
it's
be
too late for
taking action
late.
to protect
Exactly.
those lives.
Right,
They
which is what he
waited
said he's gonna
7
do.
hours. They should have done something. And thirdly, leadership would not be cooking up a story to present to the parents of these dead men on the spot.
We're going to hear more from
to tell the American
Tyrone
people.
Woods' dad, too, in the show. So stick
Yes.
around. Our political
course.
panel is just getting started, if you can believe it. They're just getting fired up. And now we need to talk about the GDP report. The latest numbers on our economy show that it's growing at 2%. Is that thanks to poor growth or government spending? We'll have a debate about that. And what kind of recovery is that? Plus, he did it again, another gaffe on the campaign trail. Hear what the vice president said this time.
Slip sliding away. You know, the nearer your destination, the more you slip sliding away.
The latest GDP report shows only 2% growth. And with the unemployment rate at 7.8%, is this the economic recovery that President Obama had promised? We're back now with our political panel to take a closer look at some of the numbers. So 2.0% GDP growth. That was better than some analysts expected, Betsy. But you say
But
that there's a
very
context.
poor. Over the last 115 years, the average has been 3.25%. So this is really low in comparison. And don't be bamboozled by this number because, in fact, it was fueled by enormous federal government spending. The president is literally shoveling the money out of the White House. Private sector growth was 1.3%, a minuscule 1.3%. And the money that the federal government spent, some of it was defense, but a lot of it went for very preposterous, wasteful things like community transformation grants to organizations in South LA that do one-on-one street education, or $1.3 billion to insurance co-ops that have a 35 to 40% expected default rate.
Got it.
So this is wasteful money to create blue jobs before the election.
So, Brian, is this the kind of growth we're looking for?
No, but it is moving in the right direction, and that's what the American people are feeling, and that's what we're seeing in the numbers. Let's also remember, included in this was an $80 billion bailout of the auto industry, which President Obama pushed, which has helped with 1.5 million jobs in Ohio and Michigan. And so let's be clear when we talk about government bailouts and spending, that a lot of this spending is to help to jigger our economy, which, by the way, Mitt Romney all of a sudden flipped in the debate and said, oh, well, he was for government guarantees, but he wrote a letter, op-ed, saying that he was against the bailout.
We're talking about this quarter.
Well, we're talking about everything.
It's terrible.
We're talking about the fact that the president saved us from a Great Depression, and people
Wrong.
don't want to talk about that. No one wants to say, oh, well,
That was
we
3.5
saved more.
years ago.
Well, guess what?
You're engaging the concept of revisionist history,
No, I'm not.
especially when you have a conversation like Fiat thinking about moving the production of Jeep vehicles to China. So when you see that, what was actually saved, and you want to talk about jobs saved, ask those people at Delphi about their pensions. Here's the real conversation. Does this move the needle for Obama in any way, shape, or form to a positive? And the answer is no. The die is cast. The Gallup poll is 51-46. The Rasmussen poll is 50-47. All for Romney. The economy, nobody trusts President Obama on the economy.
And most
Ohio is tied.
most of all, not
Pennsylvania is
investors.
now
Ohio is
shrinking.
not tied.
Investors don't trust him because investors don't trust him because he's already told businesses that tax rates are going to go up, especially on small
American
businesses.
people feel-
Secondly, Obamacare, the single largest mandated labor cost hike in American history, is about to clobber.
Go ahead, Brian.
Unemployment is at the best it's been in years. We all know that, and that the
Unemployment
American,
is the best it's been in years.
America,
It's going down to
down.
7.8%.
Yes, but that doesn't mean more
Let me
people
finish
are
my
working.
point.
They're
And
stopped
American,
looking.
and the numbers have shown the American people feel that the economy is getting better, things are getting better, and that will help President Obama.
The American people are more
That's
than
what
the
the numbers are
people
saying.
you hang out with and who live in your house. The American people don't have jobs. The 7.8% is not real when the U6 is still 14.7%. Americans are still working 2 and 3 jobs. Americans are still looking for some kind of recovery, and they're not looking to Barack Obama to get that recovery.
And the Jobs Act that the President Obama has put forward, the Republicans said we're going to sit on our hands because they want to get him out of office. If the Republicans will sit down with the president in a bipartisan way and work on a jobs bill, we will be in a better position than we are now.
These are facts. Worked in a bipartisan way to save
These are facts, by the way.
Benghazi.
These are facts. Thank you very much.
government spending doesn't create jobs. Those are make-do jobs. Those are by-the-election jobs. We need investors to buy plant and equipment and hire people, and they're not doing it because they're afraid of the president's policies.
Go ahead, Tony.
No, Betsy's absolutely right. If we're
Thank you,
relying on
Tony.
government, you're very welcome. If we're relying on government to create jobs, we live in a mythological world. Unicorns will start dancing across the desk at any second. Government can't create a job. Government can only create work. The private sector must create jobs. You're right about the anemic growth rate. That's where we need the
Brian,
push.
That's
last
true.
word.
But ask GM that which private investors would have helped them if it wasn't for the federal government. The bottom line is there are certain industries that need the federal government to step in to help when the private
That's not
economy.
true.
Not if they're
That's a
industries
fact.
shouldn't
Those
need
are
the
facts.
government.
Wrong.
Thank you very much.
Brian
Those are facts very
Benjamin,
much.
Tony Katz, Betsy McCoy. This has been a very spirited panel. And as Steve said, you're all going to share a taxi home now. Thanks so much,
Thank you.
guys, for coming in. Great debate.